Hi, this is Paul Shortino, and we go to 11.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
So, Paul, I know you just got back from Mexico, and you did a stretch of shows and stuff up there, and you were saying that it's pretty gratifying to be able to go back and perform for all those folks and keep some people kind of happy with some rock and roll.
Well, what's really interesting about the whole deal is it's called the Icons of Classic Rock with Alex Levergood from Santana, who did I'm Winning. He did quite a few songs anyways. And then Wally Palmer from the Romantics. Johnny Edwards, who replaced Lou Gramm for one album,
right,
on Atlantic with Mick Jones, and then also Robin McCauley, who actually sang with Survivor for a while.
Right.
We had David Pickler for a while, but there's issues with somebody in his family's not doing too well, so Robin stepped in for him. And then Dave Evans, who was actually one of the first singers for AC/DC.
Oh, that's right.
He was with Malcolm and his brother before Bon Scott got in. So that's the lineup, and it's about a 3-hour show with we've got 2 background girl singers, Tanya McKenna, and also one male, Dexter Espinoza, who actually toured with Bobby Kimball for a while. So they do a song each, and then we get out there and rock out for about 3 hours.
Wow.
And before that, I actually last year in April, I did the class Rock Meets Classic.
That's with the orchestra and stuff, right?
Yes.
Oh,
it
wow.
was pretty amazing. Let's see who else. John Hollywell from Supertramp.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
also his Bob Benberg, who played drums for Supertramp. His son Jesse Benberg actually said, "You know what, son, if you're going to get into this business, learn how to produce, learn how to play keyboards, guitar, sing." So he was actually doing all the songs from Supertramp, Breakfast in America.
Yeah.
And then also Robert Hart from Manford Band, and Russ Ballard, who just put out a new, just put a new album out.
Right, like a
who did
or
God Gave Rock and Roll to You. Right. He was with Argent, Hold Your Head Up High. He did some songs
New
for
York
America,
Groove.
which You Can Have Magic from America. I mean, he's amazing. And I'm trying to think of who else is in this. Also, Midge from, let me see, I've got this all on here, and this is the best way to do this so I can actually not make any mistakes. Okay, so that was Midge who was actually with Ultravox. And then Tarja Trubrun, who was with
Nightwish.
Nightwish, yes.
Yeah.
And what an amazing show.
Wow.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
With the whole orchestra. It was actually, I'm getting ready to go out in late September to rehearse, and then we tour. Myself, Joe Lynn Turner, Mark Storace from Crocus, and Eric Martin from Mr. Big.
Okay.
So we're gonna, and I think there's one other person on this bill, but I don't have the names in front of me.
Right.
But there's one other guy that I keep forgetting. I'll probably get shot for it. But we're doing 21 dates in Germany and Austria. So I'm looking forward to that. And in the meantime, I'm doing the Rock Meets Classic.
Jeez.
Or I mean, Icons of Classic Rock.
Classic Rock, right.
Yeah.
Wow. You know that
and
show that you...
Last year, King Cobra released another album with Carlos on it.
Yeah. Which...
Rowan Robertson from Dio was on it as well. It was a good record. Unfortunately, you know, to tour, it was too economically viable. And Carmine can't really leave the States. He's got limited. An issue with nose bleeding, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
You know, so I just finished an album with Phil Soussan, Carmine Appice, and Michael Voss.
Right.
Who produces Michael Schenker.
And he just did a thing with Herman Rarabelle, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And also with, I'm trying to think, I think it was Herman's daughter or something. Or no, it was Robin's or Michael's niece. And they went out opening up for, I think they did some shows with Russ Valley.
Oh, okay.
I hooked them up. And also, we're working out a deal right now. Phil's working on a deal with a label to put the record out. It's really cool. It's kind of like got some Police to it. Okay. And Zeppelin. It's kind of really, I tell you, my voice is perfect for it because it's in a lower register instead of a higher register. So there's a different texture of my voice. That's really, I played a couple tracks for Robin McCauley when we were out on the last shows of Icons Classic Rock, or Icons of Classic Rock. And he was going, man, this suits your voice really good. And I said, yeah, I really like this. It's a really good record. Nice. And Frontier wanted it, but they weren't offering much. So we're thinking about going with this other label. We're getting a small advance, but we'll be able to have the rights to the album. And also probably we'll put some vinyl out on our own, you know, and it'll be a kind of a collective catalog, how many we put out, and some CDs that we all sign. And so that's kind of what's on the horizon right now. And I'm just loving life. Yeah. You know, this late in my age, I tell you, I'll be 72 in May. So it's like,
still going.
I'm still rocking. I actually hurt myself on Rock Meets Classic. First show, it felt like, boom, somebody threw something and hit me in the hip, but the audience was too old, you know. The youngest person on the bill was Tarja and Michael, Robert Hart. Okay. He's 65, and I think she's, you know, in her late 30s or maybe
something
early
like that.
40s. Yeah, something like that. And so it just so happened I did 3 shows on ibuprofen, and then the guitar player Alex Byrot, who we wrote some material together, and that's who got me into the show. Actually said, "Hey, we have a orthopedic surgeon on the tour. Have you seen him?" And I said, "No." So actually, he was giving massages to the singers and people and the, you know, guitar players and everybody in between shows and songs. And so, anyways, he was shooting me up with some kind of medication, some type of steroid, to where I could get up there and do my thing, and then I would limp off. You know, I had my cane with me, Ramo, and
that's
and my little cane that I should have brought him in. Let me go grab him real quick.
Go for it.
There he is.
Ah, yeah.
There he is. Let's see. There he is. And I perform with him. And his name in Mexico is Ramon. But he's actually Ramo. The guy who gifted me these, we actually, they're Swarovski crystals, and we actually have auctioned them off for animals that where we have, you know, we saved, I think we have 2 dogs that are from Korea, and we raised about 25 grand right after COVID and shut down 2 of the meat markets in South Korea. And so I got Frank Zappa on the crapper behind me. So, so anyways, I would perform with him on stage, and then he would help me get off stage. And it was quite an experience, I'll tell you.
Right.
And when I came home, I had this shoot to Mexico with the icons of classic rock, and we did the what is it? The Agua? No, it's a big festival down there. And let me look on my phone what it was called. But Sting, Toto, and Christina Aguilera, and Enrique Iglesias were performing on this performance that happens down in Mexico. It's a huge festival every year. No, that's not it. Aguascalientes Festival is what it's called.
Right.
And it was really cool. 100,000 people.
Wow.
It was really amazing. And the Rock Meets Classics, we were doing arenas, so it was cool to get back into that frame of performing. And I was only doing 3 songs. Each person only does about 3 or 4 songs, which is great, you know. And it's a great way to tour. And when I toured in Germany, it was awesome. In the middle of the tour, they stop every year and go to this spa, and you know, where everybody could just chill out for a day or two, and then we get back on the road. It was really an amazing experience. I'm looking forward to doing the Legends of Rock, is what it's called, with Joe Lynn. But it's with the same rock band from Rock Meets Classic, and the same production company, tour manager, agent, and whatnot. Right. And then hopefully I might be doing Rock Meets Classic in 2026.
Wow.
And Jeff Tate will be on that tour.
Oh, no. Yeah, there you go.
You know, and I don't know who else will be on it, but I hooked him up with Jeff. And I think that'll be great for him as well. But I'm kind of hoping that they ask me back. We all hit it off really well, so it was nice. It was an honor to be hanging with the guys that were, you know, Russ Ballard and Robert Hart. We all became really, really tight friends. Nice. And it's been a really great experience. I mean, this late in my career to be kind of branding my own name, you know, instead of the bands I was with, you know. Because after Quiet Riot, when I joined Quiet Riot and replaced Kevin, I have a solo deal happening with Pasha and CBS, and it ended up becoming Bad Boys because everybody wanted to make it a band. So it was like, I was probably pretty dumb to do that, because I could have been actually branding my own name. Right. And we went into litigation for like another year, and ended up sorting everything out. And then I lost the deal with CBS because of the situation, which I should have probably just went ahead and went forward, because we had almost the album finished. And then everybody wanted to go, well, this should be a band. And I should have kind of stood on my own 2 feet and went, you know what, this is my deal, you know, and you guys want to be a part of it, fine, you know. But I've always been this kind of guy that it's always a band, and you know, trying to please everybody except pleasing myself. So this late in my life, I find myself being branding my own name, and you know, so it's been quite a journey, I tell you.
Right. And you know, part of that journey was one of the reasons I reached out to you, because it's going to be 40 years of Rough Cutt, the self-titled album, which one of the things I recall in having conversations with you in the past was that I think when you guys initially set out to record this album and got signed, I think initially you wanted Ronnie James Dio was going to produce the thing, but you guys waited around because he had his own stuff going, and then eventually I think
it really was Wendy Dio who stopped us from doing Ronnie. She thought that Ronnie would make me sound like him.
Ah, okay.
You know, because we did some demos. We did a song called Try a Little Harder that was on KLOS Unsigned Bands. And, you know, it was like a Dio song. I wrote the song, most of it. Dun, da, da, dun, 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 dun. Look out! And Ronnie had me sounding like him. So I think Wendy was afraid that I was trying to find my own identity anyways, because I was, before I got Rough Cutt together, I was doing cover songs and sounding like Steve Perry, and you know, which isn't a bad thing. And then also like Lou Gramm or whoever was, you know, doing their thing at that time. You know, being in a cover band, you want to do the songs like people want to hear them, like the people that did them. So, anyways, I was having an issue when I got in the studio with Ronnie to finding out who I was. So I could see how she was feeling that way. But if we would have went with Ronnie, the album would have been out sooner.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have missed the doorway because there was that open door that everything was happening, because we were signed to Warner Brothers before Rat put out their album Dokken. So we waited around for Ted Templeman signed the band. And so we waited around for him. And he was in the middle of doing a record with Eric Clapton, Lindsey Buckingham. So that took us off the table. And then we searched around, found Tom Allen, but it was so late in the game with Tipper Gore coming out with, you know, Heavy Metal is really bad. And that record wasn't as heavy as the cover with the spider and the dagger and the knife, you know. And we had to actually come up with our own album cover because it was late in the game. And it was so crazy. I think it was Matt and Drone, you know, cut your heart out kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we had to do all that kind of stuff on our own. And we released a third album. It was just Matt, me, and Amir. Yeah. It was that's with Carlos on it.
Rough Cutt 3, right? Yeah.
And because Dave and Chris were going to go out on their own, and they did. And we're going to do Rough Cutt. But we all made an agreement that we would never go out unless all of us went out. So I didn't really care. I just thought they might have just said, this is Chris Hager and Dave Alford's, or Hager and Alford's Rough Cutt. It was Amir and Matt gave me a call and said, hey, we have these tracks that we recorded.
Right.
You know, are you good with us putting this out? And I said, I don't care. Let me hear what I sang. And if I need to fix anything, I'll fix it. And then we had a couple other songs that they wrote as we were going through this material. Amir had this idea, and I kind of edited into a song, and there was No Secrets. And then also, what was it? It was a song that Matt had the bass line. And I kind of trying to think what the title was. But I came up with these lyrics, and then he tweaked them out a little bit, and I re-sang the song, and we put this album out. And Dave and Chris had put out Bed of Black Roses, and a video, and we had ended up putting out the original, which was the original was what we recorded, and they took that and then did a video. But we ended up putting out a whole CD, and kind of trumped their whole thing that they were doing. And I just really think that all they really wanted to do was go out and play, you know. And so I don't know if we'll ever get together again. You know, there's some really bad feelings with everything. I think Dave Alford is in North
doing
Carolina
his own thing now. I think, right?
Huh?
I guess he put together a band, and he's doing some.
Yeah, he's calling
Rough
Rough
Cutt.
Cutt.
Rough Cutt,
Dave
right?
Alford's Rough Cutt. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
So
I guess
I have not, nothing against any of them. I just know they want to play,
Sure.
And get out and work.
Right. Yeah.
That was a good record.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean
So I
that.
ran into Sebastian Bach, and his favorite track on that album's Black Widow. So
Oh yeah,
he trips on that, and he goes, "Man, that's the heaviest song I ever heard." And I'm going, "Thank you,
but
thank
I
you."
mean, there's lots of great stuff on that record. I mean, I find it hard to pick one that I would consider filler, because I think one of the things that you're talking about when we look at the Rough Cut self-titled album is you guys do stuff that's almost like thrash metal. I mean, Cut Your Heart Out is basically a thrash song,
Oh,
with
yeah, totally.
with melodic vocals, really.
Yeah, yeah. That was a cool track, and the second album had some cool stuff on it too.
Right.
In fact, the Rock in the USA was basically I had my own idea for the way the song was going to be sung, and Jack Douglas got out there and he goes, songs it's like Cut Your Heart Out pretty much. And he goes out there and I start singing, and he goes, no, I want you to go out there. And he goes, sheeba dabba dooba ba ba, sheeba dabba dooba ba, sheeba dabba dooba ba ba ba. I go, he said, now go home and write the lyrics to that trip.
Right.
And so I ended up going, so everybody start your engines, it's time to get ready to roll. Everybody everywhere tonight, we're going to rock and roll.
There you go.
So I kind of got his vibe,
Right.
But he says, this is the way Tyler writes, because he did so much stuff with
Aerosmith
and Lennon. Mm-hmm. He was one of the greatest editors in the business back then, editing tape. In fact, he edited like a lot of stuff that John Lennon did on that Imagine album, and telling us stories, some crazy stories, which was great. But Tom Allen, we got signed to the song Dreaming Again, and I wish they would have made it more of a single. I think it would have been.
Right. I agree with you. How for a band that, coming out right out of the blocks with a great record, but had to wait a little bit for it to be released because of the waiting around, and then eventually,
and the record company ended up pushing on us, "You're Never Gonna Die," and none of the guys really. It wasn't our song, so none of us really felt it. And now I hear it and I go, "Wow, I wish I would have got into it more," because it's a cool song.
Oh yeah,
but. I don't think everybody's heart was into it because, we were forced to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we would have had a different attitude about it, it might have came across better. And then the video was so out there. I mean, us being, me, Superman, guitar players being Batman and Robin.
Sure.
And the bass player, Tarzan, and
Dave
Alford being Indiana Jones. I mean, the whole... That was the problem, I think, with the MTV thing, because it seemed like every time I got in front of a camera, I wasn't really myself. I like all of the live videos stuff I've done because I'm pretty much myself, and I'm not conscious of a camera. I'm not really a camera guy, I mean, some people are made for being in front of the camera, like DiCaprio. I mean, the camera was... made for that guy. And so, and the whole concept, even both the Rough Cut videos, Double Trouble, that was another one, and Piece of My Heart. Oh man, that was a dreadful video. I had showing my son how to jump off the diving board, and I hit my hip on the side of the pool.
Okay.
And that night, we had to do this video because that was the only window that we could do this video in. And so I was on pain pills. I'm out of sync when I'm singing. They got me made up like a broad. And when we did Fame, and for the second record, we did Want to Be a Star, and it was on the TV series Fame. We showed up at 5 a.m. They made me up like a broad. I swear it was like, oh my God, what is it with this, all of this makeup on me? And, I'm not really the glam kind of guy. He's trying to make me, out of this person I'm not. And in fact, I just ran into Billy Huffy not too long ago.
Oh,
and we went and saw a performer here in Las Vegas, and he was blown away running into me again. And he's totally different than, he's older and obviously a little heavier than when I saw him last, but he's such a great guy. It was really cool to run into him, and after 30 some years, it's like, or maybe 40 some years.
40 some, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's unbelievable that it's been that long when I think
about it. But I think with, again, love the Piece of My Heart, your rendition of that. I was just kind of baffled, thinking back now, because the 2 singles off of that were covers, right?
Yeah.
And that just, I don't know. I mean, that just, thinking back now, it's
it's really trippy is that Faith Hill came out with a version of Piece of My Heart when we came out with that. And we took how we did that was we took Wild Thing and put it to Piece of My Heart. Da, 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 da.
Right.
That's really Wild Thing. And we put those 2 together to come up with that version. And then after we recorded it, Faith Hill comes out with a version like Janice.
Right.
And it was skyrocketing on the radio.
Right. Yeah.
Blew my mind.
That made her career, really, right? I mean, that was one of the very first hits. Now, when you guys arranged that, I mean, had you guys been performing that, or did?
No, actually, I was sitting in my house, and Dave Alford came over, and I started playing that. I said, "Well, we should do Piece of My Heart, but maybe we should do it heavy like Wild Thing." And then the guitar players got involved, and we took it to another level, and it was really interesting how it came together. It was ready for the album. I mean, we didn't put it in after the fact. It was we were recording the album and came up with it before we went in the studio. So it was like something that we were messing with.
Okay. I mean, everything came together on that. I mean, like you said, the way you guys arranged it, where you kind of had it combined with Wild Thing, and then the melodic dual solo I mean, everything there. I don't know. It's like it had all the good stuff you want: the hook, the riffs, the vocal. I mean, wow.
It just seemed to fit. It was really weird how it all fell together, And in fact, I'll be doing that song, I think, in the Legends of Rock. I added
like that arrangement. Song. That arrangement.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Nice.
So they wanted me to do another Slade song. I do "Come On, Feel the Noise" and "Metal Hell," and I was going to see if they wanted to do "Taker" because I know the guitar players really dig it, but it's not really a familiar song that people can hit, so they want to do hit songs. And so I convinced them to do "Piece of My Heart" like Rough Cutt. So
wow,
that'll be interesting to be doing with them this year. So I'm looking forward to that. Matt and myself and Amir, we wanted to go in and remix some of the songs because we got back the masters of Rough Cutt. So we wanted to go in and remix some of those songs. I'd like to take the laughter out of "The Kids Will Rock," though.
Right.
Just some corny stuff that was thrown on there. Maybe redo a few vocals, not too much stuff, because a lot of it's really cool. But
wow,
I think that's what we're gonna do. And Amir and Matt want to remix some of the things. Wow. I think they should leave some of it alone because it's really, Black Widow and maybe or Dreaming Again. They should maybe leave those alone. Taker probably should be left alone. But some of the other songs, I think, and probably "Piece of My Heart" be left alone. But "The Kids Will Rock" and God, I'm trying to think of all the songs that were on there. I ran down the block and didn't get enough. She's too hot.
Yeah, she's too hot
to handle. Yeah. She's too cold, too old. That was a cool song. Right. I like that song.
Right. I mean, let me look here. I can. But
and then there was
Take Her though. I mean, cut your heart out. Oh boy. I mean, again, there's lots of great stuff on that record.
Yeah.
I can't, you know, typically you know, when you, even when you have like an album that is an underground classic, let's say like Rough Cut, right? You know, there's always at least a song that you go, I don't know, that one could have been left out. Okay,
Right.
you got Take Her, Piece of My Heart, Never Gonna Die. Again, Never Gonna Die kind of grew on me over the years. Dreaming
Oh, I
Again.
mean, it's a good song,
Yeah.
it really is.
Right.
It's like a Slade song, even though the
Right.
Choir Boys wrote it when you think about it.
Ah, here we
Yeah.
go, Paul. Here's the one song on this album that I think is the deep cut. You keep breaking my heart. I mean, that one.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I like that song a lot.
Yeah.
That's a heavy song. That's a cool song.
Right. I mean, there's so much good stuff on here. And you know how I discovered you guys? It was actually, you know, back in when I was in um, junior high. There was a guy that had a box of tapes, and every now and then we'd swap tapes, you know, just to discover
Right.
new bands. Well, he never got your tape back. I told him I lost it. I forgot it on the bus. You know, but I instead
It
I
must
gave
have
him,
been a
I think, like
cassette.
two Motley Crue cassettes or something instead. But I was
Yeah.
like, hey, it's worth it, man.
That's a great story.
But no, great stuff on that record, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are willing to, you know, one, you got the masters back, and two, that you guys might do a little special something with that thing.
I think what we'll do is probably add actually some new stuff to it, just as a bonus thing.
Sure.
It would be really cool if we all could, like, lay down the attitudes, and because I never hold any grudges. It's just ridiculous to do so in
Sure.
life.
Right.
And if we all would get back together just to do a reunion,
Right.
I think people would triple
Sure.
on that.
Right.
We've done a few, and they've always turned out really great. And it would really be cool if everybody could put down their, bad feelings about how things turned out and went. Because what happened is that I got Sean McNabb and Carlos and Dave and Chris and myself, and we put together a project called Rough Riot.
Yeah.
And so basically, what happened is Dave and Chris didn't want to play with Sean and Carlos. And they called me and they said, yeah, you know what? This isn't really working out. And at the same time, Sean and Carlos weren't really digging playing with Dave and Chris. So it put me right in the middle, seeing how I put the whole thing together to try to, just for us to go out and play together and maybe write some stuff and put a new project together called Rough Riot. So part of Quiet Riot and part of Rough Cutt.
Right.
I was in both bands, so I figured, okay, this would be really cool. So I find myself in the middle, and those guys are saying, we can't play with these guys, and those guys are saying we can't play with these guys. And next thing you know, none of us are playing together. So it was like and it was really weird because I had put the band together and we made a LLC, and I put everybody I came up with the idea, but I put everybody as a partner on it. And we had a bank account. We bought merchandise together and everything else. And the next thing you know, Chris has got his brother, who's an attorney, putting a halt on everything. And I was actually just finishing a record called Make a Wish with a Japanese guitar player, and it was released on Ward Records. And we did a remake of Send in the Clowns. It's on YouTube, and Carrot Top's in it.
That's right.
And also Tablets of Stevens.
Yeah.
And then we did a song called Make a Wish. And I don't know why. We probably should have named the album We Can Stand by Helping Each Other, because that was a song on the album. And anyways, we ended up calling it Make a Wish, and I was just finished it. And those guys, they were coming up with this contractional thing that, you know, we just wanted to move on. And they drug out this whole thing. And what they were doing was dragging it out to take Rough Cutt. Mm. So that's how they started doing the video. And I didn't have any problem with it because I just finished a solo record. So I was going, I'm good with this, guys. You know what? I just want to get you guys off of this, you know, LLC, because it's coming up again this year. And, you know, I don't want to pay the fees for it. So, you know, let's try to, you know, just get through this. And then it just got drug out. And next thing you know, we finally signed an agreement. And then they come out with a video. And then Matt and Amir get a hold of me and say, hey, you know what? You want to put out an album? And I go, sure, why not? You know, we have a small label that'll put it out. And I think they were really irritated that they were doing whatever they were doing. And I didn't really care. They called me up and says, you know, there's only one singer for Rough Cutt. That's you, man. Nobody's going to sound like you. And they've got this, you know, they had reached out to the singer that was in the band Sarge with Matt and Chris back in the early 80s. And I think it was Steve St. John, I think is his name. And he's a great singer. Good performer, you know. And I had nothing against him doing it, but however, they weren't happy about it. So we ended up putting out a record and kind of squashing the whole thing. So I think there's bad feelings all the way around, you know. Not on my end. I could care less, you know. I mean, I'd be really kind of cool if we just did it for the fans, got together, you know?
Right.
Because that's really who matters, really. It's, you know, it's always about the fans. It's not about us, you know? Just like in politics, it's not about the politicians. It's about the people. We are the ones that govern the government that they forgot. You know, they have totally lost sight of what's going on. And then it's like crazy to see what's going on right now with everything that's going on. You know? You can't even say anything without somebody getting their panties in a twist. Somebody's gonna get upset over something. Oh, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like we had a guy running the country for 4 years that didn't even know he was president, and everybody was cool with that. And now we got a guy that's doing so much so fast that the other side is just, instead of latching on and trying to make it great for Americans, you know, everybody's, you know, against each other. And it's just, you know, it's so stupid because it all comes down to power, you know. That's really what it is about that shit. But I can't get too wrapped up in the politics. It's just, you know what, that and religion are two things you should never talk about.
But it is,
you're gonna offend somebody, I do Frank on the crappa, you know.
I do have to say it is somewhat hysterical that whatever he's for, they're against, even if what he says makes complete sense. You know what I mean?
It's actually, it's really common sense. It's everything that he's doing. It's just, you know, guys shouldn't be in women's sports. The border should be taken care of. You know, because the way you take down a country is from the inside out. And if you bring down the economy and break the country that way, you're going to, you know, destroy what freedom we have. And it seems like they've stifled free speech and a lot of things that are kind of coming back with common sense. I think people were afraid to say anything for a while. And now people are speaking out and speaking their mind. And, you know, I don't know. I got nothing against either side. You know, I was a Democrat when I was young. I'm an independent. You know, I can't be either one because you got people on both sides that are in it for themselves. You know, they forgot really what it's all about. We the people, you know, that's really what the Constitution was about.
Now, smile if you didn't get a kick out of that guy getting thrown out on Monday or Tuesday night.
Al Green. What a bad mark he put on, you know. I'm in love with you. You know, that's the Al Green I think of.
He didn't have as cool of a cane as you, though. I gotta say.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
No, there's no match.
I tell you, I was blown away that I was blown away that nobody could stand up for the people victims, and the kid that was fighting cancer. Boy. I mean, it just that to me was just disrespectful, and it wasn't it really. They weren't getting anywhere with that. If anything, they really turned a lot of people off, I think.
Right.
Right. Well, all I can say is God bless them. I hope they find their way, because they're really lost,
Right.
They really, they're so far off track of what people really want in their lives. Right. People want to have more money in their pocket. And I'm on Social Security, and Joe Biden's the guy who put it into effect in 1974. Let's tax Social Security. Well, shoot, you work all your life for this money, and now, the government's going to tax you. Oh, and the death tax. That's another thing. After you die, they want to tax you. It's just like, come on, I mean, you tax us to death already. That's what caused the Revolutionary War.
Right. Taxation
without representation. So, it's like, oh my God, they're so far off base with what people are doing,
Yeah.
And what people want, so who knows where things are going. It'll only get better. I think it's going to take a while, but I think it's only going to get better for Americans. And I can't believe that Hollywood and a lot of rock and roll people just don't see the common sense in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like there's a lot of people that they've got the Trump deranged syndrome. And you know what? I don't care who's running the country, as long as they, run it like a business and what's good for the people. That's really what it's supposed to be. It's good for us. That we can take a little more money home and whatnot, and say what we want to say without it being stifled.
Right.
I mean, at one time we could talk to one another without people getting upset. It was like, okay, you could talk politics, a left to a right, and the left has just gone so far out there that you got to mail them daylight. I mean, it's just we're living some crazy times, and it's worldwide ever since COVID.
Right.
And
I think the good thing about this, though, is I think music fans can agree on good records and good music. I mean, at least there's that, right?
I mean, that is one thing I think we all can get along. Music's a universal language, and it speaks to everyone. And I think that everybody can agree with that, whether whoever's in the White House or in Canada or Mexico. In fact, when we were down in Mexico, I got to meet the governor, who's the president now. And we were down there just recently, and I'm going to move you up here a little bit. And so we were up there, and recently, sorry about that, trying to get myself comfort. We were up there recently, and we went to the Capitol, and Mexican Capitol, and we met these senators and Congress people, and it was really cool to go there. And we ended up taking a tour. They had the whole, basically, the history of Mexico, a museum at the Capitol, and we didn't know that we were going on we just thought, I was standing out in front of a restaurant before we were going to go do some TV and radio, right? And this senator pulls up, and she gets out of her vehicle without her security guy, and then he comes out, and she comes up to me and she goes, "You look like a rock guy." And I says, and I had the cane and everything. Sure. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm a rock guy." And so she invited us. Her name was Senorita Gomez. She was a congressperson, and she invited us to the Capitol. So we thought we were just going to the Capitol to meet her but we went there, and we went on this whole tour. And we got to meet all these senators and all this. We got all of this live footage, television and stuff, because everybody was there and they were in session and people were out of session. So it was like, wow, what a cool thing. And it just so happened that I was just getting over Montezuma's revenge. Oh, so I had woke up at 4 a.m. and we had to leave at 5 a.m. because we were staying in a place called Cuernavaca. And it was about an hour and a half from Mexico City. And it was like the Palm Springs of Mexico. People from Mexico City go there. And it's to get away from the city. It's really a beautiful place. But we were staying in a B&B there. And we ended up doing a concert there. And there's this little pyramid that I did some video footage of and stuff. But anyways, we ended up meeting all of these people from different districts that were going, hey, I want you to come to I want you guys to bring icons of classic rock to my district. Right. And we had all this TV and it was great because we were already doing television. We did a TV show called La Soul, I think it was. And it's on Latin channels in California, Texas, and Nevada. Okay. And about 20 million viewers. So it was a good TV show. Right. I was on there with Dave Evans. I did a week of PR, and it was a trip to do radio and televition, like the old days.
Right. I was going to say like the old days, when you were
going into
records.
Actually a freaking radio station, right, and being on the radio, right, was like, am I having flashbacks of the 80s? They don't have these radio stations anymore. And this is in the US. And if they do, they're few in between. And right, and they're usually a classic radio station, and they're not really checking out what's right, going on locally, unless you are a class, someone like Paul Rogers or sure, Bad Company or Robert Plant, Jimmy Page. They keep playing the same material over and over and over again when you think about it. Right. I remember when we were we're in Las Vegas now, but living in Los Angeles, I could turn on KLOS, and at a certain time of the day, I knew what song was coming on. And as I would go, you know what? Bad Company had other songs than Can't Get Enough of My Love, or Can't Get Enough of Your Love. And Walking Down This Rocky Road, wondering where my life is leading, on to the bitter end. Ready for Love, and one other one that they played all the time. Da-dun, da, da-dun, da,
oh yeah, Feel Like Making Love. Yeah,
Feels Like Making Love. Those three songs, I was going, man. What about Bad Company and it's
like with Deep Purple. If you went by classic rock, it'd be like they only do Smoke on
the Water all the time. Yeah, and they had a lot of great songs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like My Woman from Tokyo. That whole album live was brilliant with Ian Gillan. Yeah, and the Burn album was great with Coverdale and Hughes. I mean, It was a great lineup, that Purple, and those bands are all dying out, and they're the only bands that can sell out arenas.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Still.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Aerosmith broke up, but Steven Tyler, I hear he's just going out on his own. Same way with Kevin Cronin.
Oh yeah. He's he's going
REO, because the only guy really, the original guy, was a keyboard player. Mm-hmm. But those guys are the ones that had all the hits. And I met a girl that was actually going to stewardess school. Oh. Out at in LAX, by LAX. And I was living in Northridge. And I went to her dormitory, and she turned me on to REO Speedwagon. Oh yeah. Golden Country, the very, one of the very
the early stuff
that they had. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And totally different lineup of people, but it was really interesting. I got thrown out of the dormitory with her, and she got in my VW, and I passed out in the car, and she drove my VW all the way up to Fraser Park, and we ran out of gas. And we ran out of civilization. And it was,
oh no,
I had a t-shirt, no shoes, and pants on. And I woke up freezing.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, we ran out of gas. I says, well, when were you going to wake me up? When we kind of got out of civilization? Right. You just kept on the 5. That, you know, we would have ended up in Bakersfield, but we didn't get that far. And I'll never forget that. And I told her, I says, well, you know, she ended up hitchhiking, and a Marine picked her up and took her to get gas and brought her back. But what an experience. I'll never forget that. And it's like, oh, this is not really very gentlemanlike of me, but I don't have any shoes.
Right.
Because I left them in your room when I got thrown out. And but that's who turned me on to REO. It was
nice.
And I can't remember her name to save my life. You know?
Probably not a bad thing.
No, it probably isn't. No, considering where she left me, you know.
Right. No kidding.
You know?
Oh boy.
When were you going to get the indication that we were running out of freaking civilization? Because we just kept going, and all of a sudden there was no Magic Mountain then.
Oh boy.
So
no,
because that's what's there now, and then you keep going. They had Newhall. She just kept going till all the way to I'm trying to think of where I said that we were in at, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So we ended up in BF frickin' in the mountains somewhere. And Fraser Park is where it was. Or Fraser Park, California. But I'll never forget that ride.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I got a couple more things, and then, hey, thanks so much for doing this. I know we had our little set of mishaps getting this happening, you know? But so we're looking at the Rough Cutt debut self-titled album. Now, thinking back, I mean, is there stuff in the vaults that you have related to the recordings that didn't make it onto the record? Any demos, extra stuff? I know you talked about extra stuff, maybe as bonus, perhaps.
We actually might, you know. I mean, I dug up a few things like we put out on the live or the Cleopatra anthology,
right?
Where we had the Queen of Seduction with Craig Goldie was on that. And actually, Craig Goldie was the guy that came up with Dan, 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 Dan. Because we did a version with Ronnie and did a video, actually, of that song before the album was ever released.
Okay.
And the video was recorded on Pearl Bailey and Louis Belsom estate.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh, wow.
So, we did a video of that, and then, you know, we ended up putting it on the Rough Cutt debut album. But, I think there could be a couple songs that we never finished, but I think we put everything out on the anthology that we had that was that I didn't even have. I didn't even know we had it. Like on the Bad Boys, when I released that just recently, got to get off track, but I found a tape in my DAT that was in there for 30 years and took it out.
Oh, wow.
And it still played.
Oh, wow.
And we transferred it into Pro Tools to clean it up, but it was a rough mix of that song. And it's a trip. All the other DATs that I had that were, and it was in my garage in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy. For the heat, you'd think that, you know, all the other tapes I had got destroyed. They couldn't play, but this I pulled out of the DAT and machine, and it played. It played even in the DAT machine, and I went, wow, I better transfer this into Pro Tools, which I did. And then I gave it to the record company, and they gave it to somebody else who cleaned it up even more, because it was, you know, lucky to be able to restore it. And But yeah, I think there might be a couple tracks that
Nice.
the guys might have. If not, I think what we might do is when we go in and redo some of this stuff on the masters, we might just cut a couple songs to put with it. And it really would be great if we could do it with all of the guys.
Right.
You know?
Everybody's still around.
Yeah.
Know? I mean, it's kind of one of those rarities, right? I mean,
yeah, that is very rare because a lot of bands they're not. They're not.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like Rat is not.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, you got Crosby, and he's been gone for a few years, and then you know, and
they all hate each other now too.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's a shame. It's a shame how that business works. You know, the new Spinal Tap is all about that.
Oh, that's right. I was.
Yeah, they're coming out with a new one, and they all hate bitter. Each other. They're all in their separate buses.
Right, like Motley Crue.
Yeah.
And ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Right, and maybe that's how they coexist, right? I mean,
I don't know. I went and saw Crosby, Stills, and Nash before David Crosby passed away. We saw him at the Joint, and they had taped off sections where they weren't allowed to go.
Oh,
so Graham Nash was standing on the his Indian carpet barefoot, and then on both sides was David Crosby and Stephen Stills. And then in the middle of the show, they took a 20-minute break. I don't know if they took a nap, what they did, but there was an intermission in the middle of the show, and everybody went and got something, and we were wondering, well, I wonder what they're doing back there. But the road manager who was dealing with them said that said that they all don't care for each other. Well, I think Stills and Nash still get along, but not David. David, you know, I watched a whole thing on his life story, remembering David Crosby.
Right.
And it seems like, you know what, if you've been through that much together in the beginning, really, did you really fall that far off the rails?
Right.
That you can't get back together just for the fans?
Right.
You know? I guess, you know, you get so bloviated in the head that, you know, or maybe you just can't forgive other people for their actions or things that they said, but life's too short to be that way, I feel. You know, like I said, I would be happy to do something with the original guys from Rough Cutt, to get out and just play a couple shows just for the fans.
Yeah, and what an opportunity. I mean, we talk about everybody's still around, you know, you guys having the Masters back and doing something special.
Especially with us having the Masters. We just released it on Spotify, I think.
Right.
You know, and but they want to get the Masters. I think we got I think Wendy Dio has the multi-tracks, and Warner Brothers didn't have it. Okay. So we got the Masters back from Warner Brothers, but I think she holds the multi-tracks.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know how that'll work out.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
everybody
that'd be cool.
Parted in not a good way. I don't know. I don't have any issues, but
sure.
You know, I don't know how she feels about Rough Cutt anymore or whatever. But you know, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
When we cross that bridge, we'll find out what the deal is. I don't think she has any animosity towards everybody.
Probably not.
You know, it's too many years going by. Jeez Louise.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, God rest Ronnie. I actually wish he would have produced. Not that Tom didn't do a great job. But I think the record would have been a little more raw, like his Holy Diver album, and it would have come out sooner.
Yeah,
it would have come out around the same time his album came out,
right? Which
would have been before Rat and Motley. I mean, they had all EPs out before we had anything out. Right. We had some stuff out, you know, on vinyl, the best unsigned bands, and also some of the bands from the Troubadour. I don't remember the name of that album. I have it I have a vinyl of that, and the KLOS unsigned bands vinyl. But yeah, I go back and listen. There's one song on that unsigned before Rough Cutt got signed that Ronnie produced. There's Try a Little Harder and a song called A Little Kindness. And Ronnie sings on that. I hit a note that was a little flat, and I didn't have time to come back and refix my part because I was playing in a cover band and put Rough Cutt together. So I was playing 7 nights a week, and at the same time rehearsing in the daytime with Rough Cutt, and then going in the studio. I think it was I had a day off. I think I had a day off, and I went in the studio, and we had to with my folk studio that was called Fiddlers at the time, and it was with a Trident board, 24 track, and we were getting in there, and with Angelo and Ronnie, and he ended up having to sing a few parts in the song. So when you hear that song, you hear this different voice happen. It doesn't sound like me; it sounds like Ronnie. But people didn't really know it because they weren't happy that he did that, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know he needed to have done it, but they were mixing the song, and we were in dead time in my folk studio. So they had to mix it. So he goes, well, Paul's in here. I'm just going to they didn't have tuning pitch stuff. So it was real evident that I didn't hit the note. And I wish they'd have told me when I was recording it.
Sure.
You didn't hit the note. So he ended up hitting it for me, and a couple other lines in the song. So I think it's some harmony stuff that he added to the song. But it was cool working with him, and what an incredible legend. And he'll be written down in the rock and roll. He should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
Really.
Right.
You
For
know?
sure. Yeah. So, hey, well, thanks so much for spending a few minutes of your evening.
We'll have to get together again when I get the
sure
the record done, the new record. I'll send you some tracks, and we can do we can do it another thing.
Yeah. Well, I only have like a couple things for you. One, two more questions, and then
I'll have you do as many.
I'll have you do an intro for this. I'll have you do an intro for this thing. So the two questions. One, this is going to be for We Go to 11, so I'm going to ask you a Spinal Tap-esque type story. But before, I want to ask, how much of a ordeal is it to get the cane through customs?
You know what? They think that I have on the end here, right? This little thing right here on the end.
Right.
My wife put some earthquake putty on it.
Okay.
And they thought I had explosives on it. Then they thought the end of it has a two-tone.
Right.
Let's see if I can see that. It looks like a bullet. So they thought it was a bullet, and they were trying to figure out how to fire it.
Okay.
And there's a couple times I almost got arrested and thrown in jail in Tijuana when we flew from Tijuana to Bolivia. And because I was, they weren't going to let me have it, and just so happened the bass player spoke Spanish, Alex, at the time. And I was going, look, I was getting a little excited. I was going, hey, look, it's just, I use it for performing. And then I use it to get me on the plane early. Because I go, I got a bad leg. And this is my cane. And so they let me board early. And, but it's been an issue. I'm telling you, it's not so much coming back in the U.S., but actually going through like Bolivia when we went to Panama. And it's always been an issue in these South American countries, in Mexico too, with this cane. It wasn't an issue when I went to Germany. I mean, they checked it out, but it wasn't an issue like it is, when I go down south. with the icons of classic rock. But yeah, it's Spinal Tap all over the time. You know what, that movie follows me around.
Right.
It really does.
And I'm sure
who's ever attached with me
sure
goes through it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They'll look at me and go, like when we flew back from Mexico on this last gig that we did.
Okay.
We had to fly at 5 a.m. Well, I didn't get the information. So I was woke up, and thank God something after the show, I got on the wrong bus with Evans because we were staying at a B&B, and the rest of the band, the singers and the band and crew were on another bus, and they put us on that bus. So somebody spilt tacos all over me, and I had chamois pants on I performed in with a leopard top that went with the pants, and I had tacos all over me. So when we got back to the hotel, we got back to our room,
right?
Because after we were on this bus, they said, "Hey, you two guys are on the wrong bus." Oh, that would have been nice if you'd have told us that before we got on the wrong bus, and I'm wearing tacos. And so we got on the right bus. We get back to the hotel, and Dave Evans says, "Get soap and water and try to get it off," because I had taco sauce all over these chamois pants. And so I'm going, okay. So I get to bed about 3, and I'm woke up at 5. Telling me, "Hey, you have to go to the airport. My flight's not till 10, but we have an hour and a half to get to Mexico City." So, and everybody, Robin McCauley, Alex, they were good, and Dexter is in the band. We're all going, and they're going to LA, and I'm going to Vegas. So we're on 2 different flights. Their flight's an hour earlier than mine. Well, it's Spinal Tap. The bus driver drops us off at the wrong terminal. We're running around like chickens without our head, and they're going, "This is like Spinal Tap." And I says, "It is Spinal Tap because you're with me. It really is." I said, it's been with me forever. So welcome to my world. So yeah, it is Spinal Tap with
so there you go. We got like a bonus Spinal Tap X story. I mean, we got the story about the cane, and then the trip back. And the tacos and the
when
shuttle.
I was in Rock Meets Classic, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the room, and we did a rehearsal in this small town. Well, I don't know. Then they said, "Okay, tomorrow we're picking you up at such and such a time." Well, I come down with my bag with stage clothes and Ramo here, and they go, "Where's the rest of your clothes?" It's a bus. We're driving to the venue. And from that point on, I won't be coming back to this place that I'm staying at. And I don't know this, of course. So I go, "Oh, just give me a second. I'll be right back." And the tour manager's going, "How fast can you do this?" "I'll be right back." Right. And I said, "It won't happen again." And it never happened again. I'll tell you that right now. And then there was another Spinal Tap moment when we were in Nuremberg. Myself and Russ Ballard and Ian Street, his associate, decide that we're going to stay at the hotel, and everybody else goes to the venue. And they wanted to go to where the Nuremberg trials were. Well, they didn't end up going. So they wanted to get something neat and came back. And then we needed to get an Uber or a taxi to take us to the venue. So we get to the venue. Something told me, "Paul, put your part of your stage clothes on."
Right.
My in-ears, because I was like one of the first guys on. The background singers did an opening song, and then I went on to do 2 songs right off the bat. So I said, maybe I should get ready. So I put part of my stage clothes on, and I put the rest of the stuff that I have to take in my bag, and we get in a cab. Now we can't get in the venue, and I get out with my stage clothes on, and I move these barriers because I see where everybody's going in. At least we can go in that way because we don't know how to get backstage. And the road manager keeps sending us a map how to get backstage, but
Oh,
this
no.
cab driver don't get it, and we don't speak German. So Russ looks at me and he goes, I guess, Paul, we're not going to go on the show. We won't be in the show tonight. So I call Mark, the tour manager, and he gets on the phone with this cab driver and directs him where we're supposed to go. And security stops me when I pull the barrier and tells me to get back in the cab. And I'm trying to tell him I'm performing, and he goes, and the other performers in the car, and he goes, oh no, you guys can't come this way. So we end up going around, and then the security in the backstage won't let us in either. And the tour manager has to come out and say it's okay. Yeah. So that was another Spinal Tap moment, and it just seems to,
you're no not kidding.
What I do, where I go, and there's tons of stories with Quiet Riot and also with Rough Cutt. After I was in the show in that movie, we were, David Alford was not supposed to do any interviews. So we let him do an interview, and we were playing in Lansing, Michigan, and with Dio, and it was on the Sacred Heart tour. And this guy was always known, the guy he was doing an interview with was always known to be really sarcastic. So he asked Dave some questions. And one question he asked him, he says, so who's the best looking in the band? Instead of saying, Matt or Amir or somebody, he says, man, we all got nice hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's the worst thing you could say, because from that point on, we were called Haircut for 2 weeks.
Oh, geez.
And the crew put, they would introduce us as the band from Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Haircut.
Oh, geez.
I mean, it was brutal. And on our dressing room, it was haircut for weeks, and David wasn't allowed to do an interview after that. He wasn't even supposed to do that one.
Right.
But there were so many crazy stories, I tell you.
Yeah. It's almost like, you could probably at some point when you start winding things down is probably do a book on just all these stories.
About it. I really am thinking about writing.
It would be great because you're Duke fame as well. So
wild stories. Living with the Dios,
I'm sure.
They moved me in because the people that I signed a contract with was my son's godfather, who was the assistant director on Charlie's Angels. So when he got married, I got to meet all the angels. I got to meet Cheryl Ladd, Farrah Fawcett, Kate Jackson, Jacqueline Smith. They all were at his wedding, and I played at his wedding, Kim Manners. And his father was the first director to do a on-location show called Route 66 in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And his brother was assistant director on Happy Days. And my ex-wife used to date Fonzie.
Oh, God.
When I met her. So that's how I met him, was through my ex. And we became friends, and they wanted to manage me. So I signed a management deal with them. And when Ronnie, I was playing in a band called Legend in Redondo Beach. And then I got in this band with Claude Schnell and some other members that turned into being Rough Cutt.
Right.
And then that's how we met Ronnie. And then they got me out of the contract that I was in. And because I would just sign whatever. I would, I was so trusting, and it wasn't the first. I had a record out when I was 17 on Bell Records that a guy named Snuff Garrett recorded, and he recorded Sonny and Cher, Liza Minnelli. And so it came out, it was 22 with a Bullet with Mickey Dolenz's sister on it. So it's supposed to be Paul and Coco, and that's who did it first. And then management issues on her end got into it. So they brought in a girl who ended up, JoJo, who ended up doing her own thing later. So the record was like a 45, 22 with a Bullet. And Vicki Lawrence came out with a song called "That's the Night That the Lights Went Out in Georgia."
Right.
That's the night they buried an innocent man, or hung an innocent man. And she was on the same level, so they just shelved my record.
There
right?
you go.
So just not too long ago, and I'd say a couple of years ago, I was doing an interview, and this guy says, "Hey, I have your 45. How come you never talk about it?" I says, "Why?" It's kind of just slipped my mind.
Right.
And so he says, "I have it. If you send me some new stuff, I'll send it to you." So he sent it to me. And then I did another interview with a guy who had an MP3 of it because I didn't have a turntable. Now I have a turntable. And so I have an MP3 of it and I have the 45. But the Dios moved me into their home because they were afraid I was going to sign another contract after I got out of the one I was in. So that's how that story happened. And so I have quite a story of my life, actually, which would really be an interesting book, really.
Yeah.
Sebastian Bach told me, because I got his book, and another friend of mine has a book out, and they said, you got to write a book. It's not really that hard. I just said, you know what, I should. I really should. It'd be a lot of fun, especially if I titled it "The Life with the Dios." I mean, that would be that'd be pretty interesting, because I watched that whole thing come down, how Holy Diver came about. I listened to his rough tracks, coming home with a 4-track, and then hearing the rough mixes as they were mixing it and stuff. It was quite a journey. And then working with him, going in the studio with Rough Cutt stuff, it was quite an experience. And then doing the Stars thing, and then how I got into Quiet Riot, how Kevin got out of Quiet Riot. It's just, we were friends, me and Kevin, because of the Stars thing. The next thing I know, I'm getting, called, "Hey, you want to be in Quiet Riot?" And I'm going, "Oh, I don't know," and Rough Cutt had just got dropped from Warner Brothers. So it was really weird. We were shopping for another deal, and what a story when I think about it.
Yeah. Nice. Wow.
Crazy stuff,
But you're right. I think we definitely need to connect again. It'd be great to get some more stories. And
I've got one too, where
stuff on
the Dios had a Thanksgiving, and I was sick, and I was in the guest bedroom, and I had a little black and white TV, with a very big antenna, and I was in there, and I had a whole red long johns on with the flap in the back, and I would come out periodically to get food and go back into my room,
right? Because
I was really sick. I had a fever and everything else, and so there was Carmine was there, Mark Stein was there from Vanilla Fudge, Glenn Hughes and his wife were there, the whole Dio band with Vivian Campbell and Jimmy Bain and Benny Appice. Or Appice, or Benny Appice. I did it right. Carmine Appice.
Right.
And anyways, I would come out periodically. Well, Glenn decided to split, go to the Rainbow, and he left his wife there. Well, she got sick. She ate something and got sick, and they bringing her into the bedroom. And I said, I got up out of the bed. I says, you know what? You can't put his wife in bed with me. I'm sorry.
Right. I
went into the bathroom, and just as I went into the bathroom, Glenn ended up showing up. Thank God I wasn't in the room.
Right.
And all I could hear was, "Where's the man in red? Where's the man?" I mean, we're really good friends and stuff, And he had a buzz, and he thought I was in there with his wife until they explained to him that I got out of there when I said, "There's no way I'm going to be in here with
his wife."
Karen Hughes at the time. It's like going back, 40 years. Maybe 41 or 2 years before Rough Cutt was signed. So it was a trip.
Yeah.
Because I looked up to, I still do look up to Glenn. I think he's one of the greatest rock and roll singers ever. And Ronnie used to say that to him too, and I said, there's no way I want to get into it with Glenn Hughes. It's just, I can't see it.
Right.
And he was calling, "Where's the man in red?" He wanted to to have some confrontation. Mm-hmm. And I was like standing on the other side of the table going, no, you don't understand. I've been sick. I would not ever I would not ever disrespect you that way. And everything ended up being cool, but I'll never forget that, that Thanksgiving, everybody was there, and I was so ill. But another Spinal Tap moment, because that was right after Spinal Tap.
Yeah, there you go.
After I did that freaking movie, and that was weird how I got that part. Wendy put out an ad in a local BAM magazine or LA magazine, and the casting people saw it, and they wanted Jake. Jake was in the band at the time, Jakey Lee and Dave Alford. They wanted all three of us to show up. And we were supposed to show up at a Denny's, or it might have been a Norm's, either one. I think it might have been a Denny's on Lancashire and Victory. And I just showed up dressed like I did in the movie.
That was
and
it.
Casting and wardrobe says that's Duke Fame. And I showed up before those other guys showed up, and I got the part. That's how I got the part.
There you go. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then it was like, you're going to get your SAG card out of this. And the girl I was with was Jackson Brown's ex-girlfriend. He dumped her for Daryl Hannah. And she was sitting talking to Wendy Dio, and I wasn't even signed, to Warner Brothers yet. And here I'm supposed to play this rock star. And they're both talking about rock stars, Ronnie, and she's talking about Jackson Brown. And I'm just like an awe.
Right.
And she's going, she wanted her card. And I had been on the Gong Show prior to that 2 times. And I went on with a Taft-Hartley, and I could have got my SAG card, and I didn't. Yeah. And I was on the Dating Game with the Jim Lang when I put out the 45. And I didn't get that date, but it's some crazy stuff. I definitely need to write a book.